and welcome to Call Your Coven, practical advice for nonsensical times. I am Bee, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm here with your numerology.
I'm Jeanna, and my pronouns are also she, her, and I'm here with your astrology.
And I'm Meg. My pronouns are she, they, and I've got the tarot cards.
We are so excited to dig into the month of September for the first of our monthly forecast episodes here at Call Your Coven. And here we're going to straddle the line between really wanting to use all of our extensive technical knowledge and then also wanting to offer really succinct practical support for our everyday lives. So, as we figure out what these forecasts are really going to be, definitely feel free to let us know what you think about them, what's been helpful, and also what you'd like to hear from us. But for now, we are going to start with the numerology of each month as this umbrella of sorts, right? To see what the big energetic themes that we're hanging out under for the month are. And then we're going to kick it over to Jeanna, who's going to highlight the astrological transits for the month. And then finally, we're going to break that down even further with Meg through the tarot. And I'm really excited for the tarot pulls. We have some fun pulls this month.
They are juicy.
Yeah. All right, so digging right in with the numerology. If you aren't familiar with numerology as a practice, you can check out my first solo episode, which is essentially a numerology 101 primer on how to work with the numbers in your life. But here in the monthly forecast, we're going to look at two numbers for every month. The first is the evergreen numeral of the month itself, and this is pulled from the Gregorian calendar, so you'll probably be familiar with it. And then the second number is the calculated number that's at the core of the month within the current year. And so this number is found by adding that Gregorian numeral to the digits of the current year. So September is the ninth month of the Gregorian calendar year. So obviously the first digit we're working with this month is 9. And then in September 2024, we add 9 to the digits of 2024, which gets us up to 17. And then in numerology, we're always reducing double digits back down further to single digits. So 1 plus 7 gets us to 8. Now, if I've talked math and you've tuned out, that's totally fine, but come back now so I can say it plainly. Our numbers for September 2024 are 8 and 9. So 9 is the archetype of the humanitarian, and it rules themes like endings, wisdom, lending help, offering guidance and support. And it's also the idea of the collective, right? The all or humanity at large. And so some of its pitfalls, these are things to watch out for thematically in September, are avoidance and isolation, or at least the pull to avoid or isolate, apathy, and martyrdom, or what I like to call savior behavior. So watch out for those this month. And specifically, 9 is hanging out in tandem with 8, which is the number right before 9. So for anybody who is interested in some of these larger numerological patterns for 2024, what we're seeing is this push-pull with our monthly numbers. So the Gregorian calendar numeral of the month is always one ahead of the core number of the month, which also means that we're spending 2 months in a row with every number. So I think kind of for the first month, we're listening to that energy, we're observing it, and then the next month we can really put that into action. So for September, 9 is the number that we're observing. And then, spoiler alert, in October, we will get to work with that 9 energy a little bit more. But we've been hanging out with 8 definitely since the beginning of the year, right? We're in this 8 collective year in 2024. So 8 is really our number of the year. But we've been hanging out with 8 in monthly numbers since the beginning of August. And now in September, that 8 feels really actionable. And 8 is all really about embodiment. It rules power, karma, money, abundance, action, pain, pleasure. It's really about the overall experience of being in a physical body as it's an emotional number. But 9 is a mental number. So September definitely highlights some of 9's more intellectual pursuits. You might feel drawn to start. Again, there's that action of 8. You might feel drawn to like start some kind of structured class or a means of self-study or whatever learning looks like for you right now. You might also be interested in going deeper with new philosophies or spiritual or devotional practices, or you might just be drawn into new service roles or volunteer opportunities. So, if any of that sounds of interest to you, September is a really good month to dig into research and learning and service. And especially because we did talk about 2024 being this overall 8 year, and 8 is the ordeal. It can be pretty brutal. And I definitely think we're all feeling that, at least at this point this year. Yeah. So September is really this perfect time to find ways to plug back in and to offer support. So we're not talking about overextending ourselves here, but we are saying it's time to come back into our bodies, into our homes, into our communities, and figure out how we want to plug in and move forward. So 9 definitely carries this like roll up your sleeves energy, but especially in an 8 month, it knows that the weight of wisdom doesn't just live in the brain. We have to like bring it into the full body. So we're honoring our gut, we're trusting our body's needs. And I think because 9 rules the whole ecosystem, it'll be really important in September that whatever we're choosing to do with our time and our efforts, that we are moving forward from this place of embodiment and integrity and care. Now, we're going to talk about some specific areas of life later on in the episodes, and a lot of us are going to offer further insights on more of a personal level. So, for that part, and then also just in general to add contextual nuance to your own personal information, you can calculate your personal yearly and monthly numbers. I am going to talk math at you again, but hopefully this is easy to follow along. You find your yearly number by adding the month and the date of your birth to 2024 and then reducing until you get a single digit. So just to use myself as an example, my birthday is July 7th. So I would add 7/7 to 2024, which gets me all the way up to 22. And then in the case of a yearly cycle, I absolutely even reduce those repeating numbers further. So I'm in a 4 year. And then to find the monthly number, you take that yearly cycle number that you've just found. So in my case, 4, and you add it to the Gregorian numeral of the month. So in September's case, I add 4 to 9 for September, which gets me to 13. And then 13 reduces further to 4. So in September, I'm in a 4 year and a 4 month, and I don't love the number 4. So please send thoughts and prayers to me.
4's fine. It's super comfy. Everybody loves 4.
So structurally sound, so
So
safe.
so safe, so easy.
Yeah. So again, the reason that I'm introducing this calculation is that I will be shouting out a few monthly numbers during our lightning round at the end. So be sure to figure yours out if you'd like a little personal spotlight on what themes might be highlighted for you in September. But overall, our ruling numbers for September are 8 and 9. And I do really feel like they tie into the astrology and the tarot for the month. So Jeanna, I'm going to kick it to you. Take it away.
Oh my gosh, B, that was so informative, but also like it felt like a call out for all of us who were not math people, but now what we do for a living is secretly math. Like if
Not
anyone
us.
said with astrology being just geometry to me when I was getting into this, I don't know if I ever would have, but too late now. At any rate, though, it was so cool to hear you talking. Like I was taking notes furiously. It was so cool to hear you talking about service and community because like the astrology is astrologian with the numerology. It's all in the we are all, as you would say, be swimming in the same soup, as it were. And relationships and uplifting each other have so much to do with our healing because we are in Virgo season for most of the month, which really sets the tone for the archetypal energy that we're moving through. Virgo is the sign of the harvest and is the last sign of summer in the northern hemisphere. And then on September 22nd, we have the sun moving into Libra, which initiates us into the fall season. in spite of global warming. This is also called the autumnal equinox, which may sound familiar to listeners. And this seasonal transition from Virgo to Libra, from the end of summer to early fall, often feels like coming home to what's important. Virgo season helps us to sort and to organize and to figure out what our priorities are. And then Libra season, coming in at the end of the month and carrying us into October, which is another episode, really helps us to invest in those relationships that give meaning to our lives, whether with other people, with land and spirit and deity, or with ourselves. So this month very much has the feeling, it's so in sync with what Bee was saying, like of reprioritizing in order to come into further alignment with our values. So for me, a key word with Virgo season that I come back to every year is distillation. And if you're a nerd, then you might be really into the scientific process of distillation. But it feels so resonant with the numbers 8 and 9 and also with Virgo season. Like everyone talks about how Virgo is organized, is service oriented, is a frequent buyer at the Container Store. And like there is some truth to that for sure, but it's important to remember why Virgo is so invested in getting our shit organized in the first place. You know, if we think of water running through a sieve or distilling whiskey at a distillery, like distillation is ultimately about separation. It's about precision and quality that comes through doing that very precise, time-consuming work. So to use that biblical metaphor, it's about separating the wheat from the chaff. What it is just that we're removing impurities in the distillation process, like things that would corrupt the final form, like not to get too D&D about it, but like things that make it unusable. When distilling whiskey, you know, again, nerding out a little bit here, you're using different boiling points to actually separate and purify different compounds in the alcohol. Like every whiskey maker is going to remove methanol because it's extremely toxic in high doses, and we don't want that in a final product. And this is just what Virgo season is all about. Like, what are we taking the metaphorical methanol out of in our lives? This is when we take everything that we've gathered over the year, everything we've worked on, and we put it through a distilling process in the interest of purifying our ideas and our practices, and just getting really in the nitty-gritty with it. We can acknowledge that certain ideas or people or jobs or other things, you know, helped us to get to where we are now. You know, I talk to writers and creatives a lot, and something I always tell them is that nothing is wasted, everything is grist for the mill, but eventually you do have to do that sorting and separation. And that is the time of year that we're in right now. What does not serve us in this final process of distilling? We might also think of it as a final process of becoming, like leveling up, moving into the next phase. And so the lunations for the month, which is to say the new and full moons, are really going to help us in this refining process. So the month kicks off with like a really beautiful new moon in Virgo, honestly, on September 2nd at 9:55 p.m. Eastern. And this new moon is exceptional for things that initiate you into a new season of refinement, especially refinement in your work. Things like editing ideas and projects, or doing a huge spiritual cleansing and total reorganization of your house, redoing your budget or investments, like paying extra close attention to those things. We are making new choices here about how we can be better resourced and how we can better serve and be in community with others. And I also want to encourage folks to think about resources beyond money. Like when we think about being resourced, it's also to do with our energy, with our time, with the people in our lives, all of that. So this is not so much a lightning in a bottle inspiration new moon. Like that's always nice when those happen, but this is more of a new moon that helps us pivot and helps us shift in ways that feel smart and grounded and like we have all of our ducks in a row. And so overall, we are just project managing this month, really. We're doing quality control, basically. There's a real opportunity here to change course at the end of the year in a way that feels more in line with our values and also with how we want to be of service to our people. And so the full moon is an interesting addition to this general theme we've got going, because like it'll be really helpful doing this work of sifting and sorting prior to the full moon that comes on September 17th, because this full moon mid-month kicks off our fall eclipse season. The TLDR here is that full moons are equal parts birth and death, and that is especially highlighted, like the completions, the peaks and the cycles that full moons bring is especially highlighted when it's happening landing on an eclipse. So mark your calendar for September 17th at 10:34 p.m. Eastern, which is when the full moon / partial lunar eclipse in Pisces arrives. To have an idea of what this might bring for you, think about what you were starting or embarking on around March 10th of this year, about 6 months ago, because that's when we had our new moon in Pisces. And new moons and full moons come in pairs. They're usually about 6 months or so apart. And typically what we're beginning on or starting or insert something here on a new moon, we tend to see fruits of that in various regards 6 months later. So look back to March at what was happening, and it will give you more of a specific idea about what this full moon eclipse might bring up, whether it's topics or putting certain relationships back in play. So with a creative, sensitive, very porous Pisces full moon that is also an eclipse and is also sitting with Neptune, which is very dreamy and romantic, but also like never met a boundary, odds, it's a lot. Odds are a little bit high that relationships might be on the table for all of us, that our spiritual life might be going through some transitions, that there might be some bleed and porousness and back and forth with certain decisions. This is a time to take a ritual bath or shower, to go sit near a local body of water, to unplug from your phone and really try to do an internet detox. And I'm calling myself out in that. Mindfulness practices like meditation, journaling, and gentle stretching are your friend. Honestly, this time of month is probably going to be feeling extra tender for most everyone. And so obviously, like while we put our own oxygen masks on first, it's also a good time, not to quote Bee again, but to quote again, to remember that we are all swimming in the same soup. And so to the extent that we can, with awareness, like extend grace to the people around us, extra patience to the people around us, we're all in this together, as High School Musical would say. The last thing I'm going to say in regard to the astrology is that this is going to be the first eclipse happening on that Virgo-Pisces axis over the next 2 years. But right now, the Aries-Libra eclipse cycle is ending. We've been having eclipses in those two signs since spring 2023. So this Virgo-Pisces eclipse cycle that we're all going to be in for the next few years together will go through 2026. And this is our first peek into, like, behind the curtain of what it's going to be bringing. It's a sneak preview, if you will, for what themes are going to be highlighted in your life over the next few years. Pop astrology, like internet astrology, meme astrology, tends to catastrophize eclipse season. But frankly, like what I always tell my clients is that when you're doing the work, engaging with your life, taking responsibility for your choices, then eclipses are just kind of like, oh, this thing is happening that I expected to happen. Like, this is not a surprise to me. You can prepare. When you're actually engaged with your life and your choices and your accountability, it's much easier to prepare for eclipse season, in part because it's not going to like rock and roll all over you as it will if avoidance or isolation or other various things be mentioned are at play. So deep breaths. It's not overly cause for concern. You've got this. And with that, I'm going to kick it over to Meg.
Incredible. Yeah, I should do an episode just on the tower, because the tower is the kind of eclipse card, and I feel like people have the same energy about both of those things. Anyway, I love that I get to go last because I get to listen to you both talk, and then I think it's really fun to be able to bring in tarot to the mix and really talk about the specific cards that I pulled for us for this month, because they're so on point. It's kind of ridiculous. So in addition to the other 101 episodes that you'll be able to access and listen to at any time, I am putting together a Tarot 101 episode specifically for you, just to talk you through what tarot is, how it's structured, what the deal is, and how we're going to be using it here. But in case you haven't gotten to that yet, just to let you know, my plan for this month, since tarot is a little bit different as a modality, I'm going to pull 3 cards for us in each forecast. So the first is going to be a broad theme card for the month, which is just going to be vibes, right? Energy to know, ways of thinking about the month ahead. But I'll also pull 2 other cards, which are truth and dare. So the truth card is going to be information, insights to pay attention to, specifically things that we should be exploring or interrogating internally. So it's stuff to know, stuff to process in your heart of hearts, in yourself. These could be perspective shifts. These could be new insights or revelations. They could also just be questions to sit with and ask yourself to sort through. And then the Dare card is going to be more external, right? It's going to be more relational. So we're going to be thinking about actions, risks that we might want to take, things to explore or test out externally, something we can play with or challenge ourselves to try, somewhere to like push ourselves and maybe push our own boundaries, maybe just rethink how we're showing up in the world in certain ways. So you can really think of the Truth card as an internal opportunity that you might want to play with this month, and the Dare card is an external opportunity that you might want to play with. But you do you, live your life. This isn't predictive. This is just about offering you some suggestions and some practical insights for how to move through your month. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's get to the cards. So for September 2024, speaking of quality control and swimming in the soup, our theme card is the Queen of Swords. So like all of the court cards, yeah, we love the Queen of Swords around here. Like all of the court cards, I like to think of court cards as minor arcana archetypes. So these can be figures that really highlight something about who we are, like an aspect of self, or they can just represent a person or an energy that's going to be particularly influential in our lives. But court cards can also just be like a way of being that could be particularly supportive or helpful or just important to utilize at that time. So when we're talking about the Queen of Swords, we're thinking specifically about a figure that is pretty insightful, right? This is somebody or an energy that is clever and discerning and able to cut to the heart of something. When we're talking about the Queen of Swords, we're really talking about the Queen of Air, right? Swords is the suit of air, which is connected to the mind and truth, communication and analysis. And so I like to think of the Queen of Swords as someone who serves as this mentor or artist or teacher, but someone who's really committed to cutting through bullshit, right? This is someone who does trust their intuition, but also trusts their observations and their perceptions and their ability to see and understand truth in the world, right? They have this ability to discern. They have this capacity for stripping away the noise and focusing on what something is actually representing or what something is actually meant to be. Now, all queens have an association with water. So since the suit of swords is associated with air, the Queen of Swords is a combination of water and air, which means that this is a figure that is both compassionate and logical, right? Who's able to do head and heart at the same time. They trust their capacity for analysis, but they also have this longing and curiosity for discovering truth and sitting in truth and being curious about what's going on. And personally, I associate all of the queens with the number 4, since I work with them as card 13 of their suit, which means that we also have this additional energy of stability and boundaries, of structure and organization, as well as this real sense of like protecting the self and protecting community and protecting work within all of the queens. So as a theme for September 2024, the Queen of Swords really encourages us to honor and trust in our own mind, to not forget or downplay our own experiences, and to not like defer what we know, what we truly know, to someone just because they're telling us something different, right? We don't have to trust someone else's experience over our own experience if they're contradictory. We get to take both in mind and we get to really trust in the truth of both things. So this is really about moving through this month with purpose and intention. That like roll up your sleeves energy that Bee was kind of talking about, it feels really potent with this queen because there's this energy of just like doing the damn thing, saying the damn thing, and also really meaning what we do and say, not wasting our time doing things that we don't really care about, not saying things just to be polite or just to go with the flow, but really saying and doing things that we believe in and feel really invested in and want to make a real thing, like things that we really care about. And queens are also about service, right? These are community leaders and teachers. These are people that are in relationship with a mind to service, hence all that Virgo stuff. I love getting to go last. It's great. These are like, this is really this energy of belonging to the self, of acting in service, of moving with intention, and like really sitting in this potent energy of doing what we care about and really making something that's going to last that also has real meaning for us. So when you're thinking about the Queen of Swords as a main theme card for this month, as a vibe for this month, think about how you're balancing your head and your heart. How are you offering insightful, truthful care to yourself and to those around you? Where might adjustments be needed, and how you're structuring your mindset, or how you're thinking through and like approaching a problem or a solution? How could you maybe adjust some of the approaches that you're taking in the ways that you're engaging with the things that you care about? And also just thinking about like, where do your opinions come from? What do you believe in and where did that come from? Are those opinions that you have, are those perceptions that you have, are they set in stone or is there any flexibility there? Are there things in there? Is there bullshit kind of baked into your belief system or in your opinions about things that could be stripped away so that you can really get to the heart of what matters and what's actually driving the thing forward? So these will be a little bit faster, but I also pulled a truth card and a dare card. So the truth card is our internal challenge, and this is the Emperor. Can't make this shit up. So we have another 4 card, right? Because if the Queen is the 4, then the Emperor is also a 4 archetype. It's card number 4 in the major arcana. So adorable, on the nose, you love to see it. Personally, I really like to think of the Emperor specifically as like a shield and also as an organizer. So this is an energy of safeguarding new, beautiful, emerging things and empowering those things to grow really safely in a protected, intentional environment. The Emperor also brings this energy of investing in systems that are going to allow for ongoing stability and like long-term success and growth. The Emperor is really about balancing authority with care. This isn't just someone that comes like sweeping into a project with an iron fist and wants to change everything around or, break up any creativity or say no to everything. This is instead about someone who wants to teach us about discipline and long-term planning and the value of ambition paired with steady effort. This is about protecting the things that we love. Right. So as our truth card for the month, the Emperor could be asking us to check in on our boundaries and our sense of boundaries, where the boundaries come from, what they're doing for us, what they're accomplishing, why they matter and why they're important. But I think the Emperor also offers this really beautiful insight into not being afraid to say no when no is the right answer, to know when it's wise to say that's actually not the right thing for me, or can we make this adjustment, or I can't handle this right now, or whatever the thing is. But I think just like the Queen of Swords, the Emperor brings this real self-knowledge that comes from being deeply aware of what we need and also being willing to back that knowledge up with a willingness to verbalize and articulate and stand up for what we need, to actually enforce those boundaries, not just know that we have them in our heart, but not do anything with them, right? Also feels relevant for eclipse season, honestly. The Emperor is very grounded, very calm, very focused, very disciplined. This is just moving with intention instead of flying off the handle or doing something brand new just to do it. Our dare card, on the other hand, which is our external challenge, is the 9 of Pentacles. So we have 2 4 cards, and 4 plus 4 is 8. And then we also have a 9 card. So we're just really living in that 8 to 9. You can't make this up. We're just living in that 8 to 9 dichotomy magic. It's a beautiful thing. So with the 9 of Pentacles, Pentacles is our suit of earth, which is attached to like the body, the physical, the tangible, daily work, daily effort, daily comforts, daily pleasures, just the sensual experience of being in a body in this world that is fucked up and also beautiful, right? And so this is like our lived experience. So with the 9 of Pentacles, looking at this almost to the very end of the suit, we're thinking about independent success and also success that has been supported by community. We're thinking about deep physical satisfaction. We're thinking about having what we need, like all the resources that we need in abundance. Again, not just money, but all of the resources like space, time, energy, inspiration, creativity, love, support, whatever it is. And the 9 of Pentacles is also about recognizing that we've been working really fucking hard, right? And we've gotten to where we are because of effort, because of long-term planning, because of intentionality, because of discipline, and also because of joy. The 9 of Pentacles, 9 can be kind of an independent number. It can kind of be in this weird space of like moving to solitude when we're thinking about it from a tarot perspective, because 9 is this like hermit energy. But I really think that 9 is also, again, about service and about being in connection with community and recognizing our positionality in community. And so with the 9 of Pentacles, we're thinking about how success doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? No one's existing or succeeding in a vacuum. All we have to do is look at billionaires, right? Not to get too anti-capitalist here, but hi, I'm Meg, I'm an anti-capitalist. Anyway, Pentacles are really about the tangible parts of our world. And so as a dare card, this is really thinking about this month challenging ourselves to let ourselves experience deep joy and to take comfort in the work that we've done instead of like apologizing for what we've accomplished, feeling guilty about what we have. I think it's really about not just knowing that we're getting somewhere that we want to be, but also recognizing how far we've come and that we have arrived in a place that we once dreamed about being, that we have built something that we can really rely on, that we're proud of. I think there's also something to like sharing the wealth with those around us, really giving back, staying engaged with that community rather than separating ourselves from that community. I think the Nine of Pentacles gives us space this month to balance finishing strong with also like treating ourselves and taking care of our bodies and taking pleasure in a job well done. So like 9 and 8, y'all, what the fuck? I want to hear from y'all if you have insights on these cards, but also just like we got to talk about these three modalities together, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you were talking about the Queen of Swords and talking about water and air, it's like that is 8 and 9, emotional water
Yeah.
and mental air energy.
Mhm.
So I think this is exactly why we wanted to do this and why we saw the value in putting all of these modalities together. And that's just two. We haven't even talked about the astrology yet.
Yeah.
But I do think the thing that I'm really taking away from listening to both of you is that this month in September, it's about what kind of effort we want to make. So 8 would say embody joyful effort. And then that 9 piece of like trusting your own knowledge and your own experience and opinion, it really does feel like we're meeting ourselves at this really beautiful point in the spiral turning over. Right after 9, we start back at the beginning with 1. So September is like this really joyful finish with our eyes forward towards a beautiful and like potent pivot. So that just all feels so juicy.
No, I love that, Bee. And it's so encouraging hearing all of us talk about really similar things, honestly,
Yeah.
because it's also like, it's not just that there's overlap in the messages, but it's also that different things that each of these practices offer are a medicine for when the other practice is giving us some difficult stuff. Like when Meg was talking,
Yes.
'cause like thinking
Totally.
Pisces full moon eclipse, which like ideally so dreamy, so romantic, like, get high, good sex, all that, whatever. Like ideally. But less ideally, it's an energy of like spiraling out and not being able to find yourself in that tornado of a spiral. So, like, thinking about the emperor as medicine, what is a container that can help us hold our boundaries during that kind of time? It's really cool to be listening to this. And one thing that like super came through though, I think when we're talking about resources and boundaries and service is that like we're all ultimately talking about like what fucking matters and about what priorities we are moving into, sifting through here at the end of the year. And we've all mentioned time in some capacity. And I was reminded when y'all were talking, I saw something on the other day on social media. Who knows if it was a TikTok or a tweet? I don't know. I can't remember. But I saw one of my social media friends talking about how they knew an American in Berlin who was taking language classes. And the American person was like trying to express their desire to make more time, which is just a saying we have here. But that verb subject usage in English around making time like doesn't exist in other languages, and this blew my mind. Okay, because like the German instructor laid into this person being like, you cannot make time, you cannot, like, that actually technically it has a translation, but culturally there is no translation to this very American idea of making time. You cannot apply verbs like make time or create time to it because it's actually oxymoronic, and that just felt so revelatory to me, like that reminder that language so informs how we understand the world, like this idea that, time cannot actually be made. And so we have to prioritize our resources and prioritize how we spend time and get really comfortable, like with the uncomfortableness, I guess the discomfort, the discomfort of like taking responsibility for things that we are letting go of or are committing less to this month. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And I think I love that you mentioned the Emperor with this because I'm going to bring it right back there. I think that feels so relevant to that truth card for this month because Yeah, the Emperor is so much too about operating within constraints, like operating within the boundaries that we've already set, committing to like reinforcing those boundaries, because we can only do so much, right? We don't have infinite resources, most of us. Most of us are not billionaires. Most of us do not have the same 24 hours in a day that Beyonce has, right? Like we're operating within the constraints that we have based on our resources and our energy and also what we can think about, right? It's not, this isn't magician energy. This isn't just like infinite possibility of one and just daydreaming and imagination. This is like really grounded in the finite. And so I think the Emperor, it's like you've got a plan, but we've also got limits, and we're going to do what we can to operate within those limits and make something really beautiful with what we've got right in front of us and at our fingertips.
If you are looking for one energy and you cannot wait till October, I did do the numerology of the new moon and the full moon, and the numbers I think are really interesting for this. So the new moon on September 2nd is actually an overall 1 day.
You like how I accidentally set you up for that without realizing.
I know, you're like, this is not magician energy.
Like, I'm
And I
just
was
going to
like,
mention
well,
a random number that has nothing to do with anything, but actually.
It's like that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, we will
Wait for
find
it.
it. We will find it in there. No, but I think this is great for a new moon. A new moon on a 1 day is always awesome because it aligns so much with the energy of what we do on a new moon. So we're putting things into practice, we're setting intentions, we're planting seeds. And so with one energy that day, we're not going to see the fruit on the day that we plant the seed. So this is not that kind of vibe. In terms, I feel like the magician can absolutely just be like, and a fruit tree.
Yeah, I really do feel like the magician can just pull fruit out of their ass and be like, look, I found this.
100%.
Cycle, but the lunar cycle is like you need 6 months at least.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
100%.
this kind of 1 day. We are planting the seeds. But then September 2nd by itself alone every year, 9/2, has 11 energy. So that is actually something to work with. And then that's 3 1s on this new moon in our numerology. And 3 is the magic number. So definitely, if you are looking to launch something, do it. I would never say don't do it. But again, we're using discernment energy. So, like we've been talking about, this month as a whole does not say go without a plan, but you can use this day to put things in action if you would like to. And then the full moon on the 19th is an overall 7 day. And this is spirituality. 7 is the esoteric, it's diving deep, it's magic, it's mystery. So this feels totally aligned with a full moon in Pisces. And I haven't really thought about the eclipse piece, but the tower, which you've talked about, Meg, is the 16th card, which is 7. So, hello, there it is. We are witches. Thank you for listening to our podcast. But 7 does like to hang out in the question. So overall, we are still in 8 and 9 energy. We're farther along than 7. But I do think this full moon day could be this nice break, like you were talking about, Jeanna, to daydream and to get back in touch with spirituality or sensuality. This could be like a nice break to float in the midst of having to be really grounded and having to be really discerning. So I do see that like Virgo Pisces polarity that you were talking about of being this really nice opportunity for daydreaming or a break that day, but we just can't get lost there. Like we have to pull ourselves out.
Yeah, it's like take a trip to the other world, but make sure you can find your way back. Like to your point, B, about like we have even for spirituality, even for our magical practices, we have a plan. We have a tether. We have a ritual. That is very important right now.
We're not diving into the ocean with no idea where we're going. Like,
No.
We're not free diving out here.
yeah, I was like, there's got to be a
No.
word for that, but it sounds terrifying. So no, thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely breadcrumbing our way through, like leaving a trail for ourselves. Okay, before we talk about buckets, I just wanted to add one more thing, which is the idea. I've been thinking about this the whole time, the idea of killing your darlings. And that kind of sounds to me like overall what we're talking about in September. So, if you're not familiar, kill your darlings is a creative term, and it just means having to get rid of something that you really like. And that could be a line in a script or a paragraph on a page. I really only think about artists. So, I'm sure if you do other things, you can translate it into your speak, but it's the idea there is still grief around loss, like Gina was saying in this Virgo to Libra energy, but you will be better through this distillation process. And you will be stronger by taking that part out. And so it's less about what the ego wants to do or like having our pride on the line, but it's really giving our desire to the big picture. That would be 9, and saying, like, maybe we don't trust or know that it's going to be really good, but it is going to be the best for us to just take that. So, yeah, I think Kill Your Darlings is an interesting way to approach this month from all angles.
Totally. I love that so much. I love the kill your darlings thing in general, but I think in particular it feels so relevant for this because I think looking through a tarot lens, one of my favorite things about the number 9 and how it shows up in tarot specifically with like the Hermit and the Moon and those minor arcana cards is this sense of like detachment, almost being able to look at something kind of more objectively than we can when we're right in the mess of it because we're already in the process of starting to leave it behind. We're already starting to say, okay, like this project is wrapping up. I'm proud of it. And also I can kind of like prepare to put it on the shelf or hand it off to the next person or whatever's happening. And it kind of gives us this permission to either say like, yes, this is so great. I'm so proud and I'm happy to leave this, or I'm going to grieve a little bit and I'm going to like take some time to like really say a proper goodbye, or to say like, wow, that sucked. I'm so glad this is over and I can just like put it on the shelf and not think about it anymore. So I feel like that kill your darlings energy for September just feels really relevant, especially kind of folding in that 9 of Pentacles and thinking about, okay, this has been a long growth process and this has been fulfilling and sustainable and sustaining, but I'm good now. Like I'm about ready to say this is like solid and I can kind of stop investing in it and start to shift my focus to something else.
Yeah, that's the tagline for September 2024. Kill your
Yeah,
darlings.
100%.
Okay, so to wrap us up for the month, we've put together some forecasts for buckets or areas of life. We've chosen finances, home, love, and health. And we've used astrology, numerology, and tarot, respectively, to bring you some additional insights. But just a disclaimer before we start that we are not experts in any of these areas. And we really are just making these offerings based on what we know and see. But we are not financial planners, we're not accountants, we're not therapists or doctors. And so even though we are always trying to be inclusive and considerate of all life experiences, please definitely be mindful while listening to these. And if something does not work for you, just do not listen to us.
Yeah, Queen of Swords, like use discernment, trust your own insights, listen to your own body, etc.
Yes. So, financially speaking, 8 rules money in all of its forms. So, finances are definitely on the table for us in September with this core number of 8. But, like Meg, you were just saying about this detached energy, that really does vibe with 9. So, we can use this like sober energy to take a really good look at our finances. So, in September, definitely check in on budgets, goals, debts, loans, investments, and be really mindful of how 8 emotional elements weave in with your spending. So 9 is wisdom, and we're just being asked to be wise about our resources. But that being said, we can also use 9 service energy to literally pay it forward. So do something kind or helpful for someone else, like pay for someone's gas or groceries. And a little generosity of spirit is going to go a long way this month for everyone, for you and other people. If you're in a personal month of 4 or 8, you may experience changes to your resources. And I think this can go in either direction, like unexpected windfalls or unexpected expenses. And typically 4 is tighter and more constricting, and 8 is like abundant and growth. But I do feel like because September has 9 energy, it's a little bit of an equal opportunity. It's the all. So it could go either way. Again, just be wise.
Wisdom and discernment are the messages for the month. It's so funny too. I'm literally writing an essay for the newsletter on discernment right now. So it's just
That's right.
it's all very
Feels good. Yeah.
the magic is magicking. So in terms of astrology for money and specifically, with finances, we're thinking about money, we're thinking about contracts we have with other people for money, whether through employment or alimony, child support, all of that kind of stuff. So the specific day that I would have everyone pay attention to, regardless of your chart, astrologically for finances, is September 22nd, which honestly, like low key, it's a big day astrologically anyway. It's the autumnal equinox when the sun is moving into Libra, and Venus is also moving into Scorpio that day. But before Venus moves into Scorpio, when she's at the very, very last gasps of Libra, she is going to make a square, which is a very frictionful 90-degree angle with Pluto, which at that point in the month will be in its last ever retrograde in Capricorn. So when we're talking about Venus and Pluto having a conversation, it's really important to think about their aspects that are at play together, because Venus is about love, yes, but she's also about wealth and abundance and how we feel resourced. And Pluto is the lord of the underworld, lord of transformation, in charge of a lot of death cycles. And so when Pluto like T-bones Venus's car, this often ends up being about power dynamics in some capacity. And like it could be about power dynamics in relationships, of course, but given that it's Libra and Capricorn, that's like the style this is happening in, and Pluto and Capricorn is like so conservative, old money, like hanging on to the structures that be, including financial institutions like banks. This really feels like if relationships are foregrounded, then we're talking about power dynamics about money in relationships, but it could also be like disputes over alimony or what an employer owes you or some such. There can be an exploitative I'm not saying this to fearmonger, but like there can be an exploitative tendency when we see a Venus square Pluto moment. So also it's a day when like if something that seems too good to be true gets offered to you, again, wisdom, discernment, take your time, double check contracts, all of that. And just like, keep a calm head, document everything. Don't be afraid to share what's going on with people who can help. Because there are parts in the birth chart that have to do very specifically with your personal finances and material resources, I'm going to look at the people whose rising signs indicate that that area of life is going to be highlighted for them this month. So for Leo risings, this Virgo new moon is a great time to invest in your personal resources. Oh my goodness. In your financial life, like launch something, take a step toward financial security, open that high yield savings account. Like it's a real highlight moment on your money and specifically on growing your money in a big and sustainable way. And then it's a little bit different for Aquarius risings later in the month. The Pisces eclipse later this month is going to highlight the same area of life for you, your second house of personal finances and material resources. So that could mean completing a major financial cycle, like paying off a debt or changing direction with your work and where your income is coming from. But something major is getting resolved with your money over this next eclipse cycle. Like I have a feeling that what happens for Aquarius risings later in September is going to really pan out over the next few years through 2026, just totally changing and transforming the nature of your financial life. Given that Neptune is involved in this lunation, ideally Neptune helps you move toward a more ideal state of affairs, but still, like Bee said, watch out for overspending, be mindful, very realistic and not idealistic about where your money is in this moment. Like be very practical about what you have to do to move toward that ideal state. But I do think this next eclipse cycle is going to be very transformative for finances for Aquarius risings and Leo risings, honestly. It's going to be awesome. Meg, what are the tarot cards doing with money?
Yeah. So since I'm pulling cards and since tarot is a little bit squishier as a modality than like astrology or numerology, I'm not going to be necessarily like giving you, numbers or rising signs or things that are quite as concrete. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to look at all three cards that I've pulled for us for the forecast together and consider the ways that they work together as practical advice for whatever bucket we're breaking down. And honestly, a lot of these are going to be kind of quick and dirty because we see a lot of the themes that are coming up with the other two modalities just getting kind of reinforced and highlighted in the tarot. So obviously we're starting with finances and resources. We're seeing similar themes, right? I mean, if you've been listening to this episode, you know we're talking about the Emperor, we're talking about the Knight of Pentacles, we're talking about the Queen of Swords. And the Emperor is so much about responsibility and control and discipline, rather than just running off and buying every single thing we can think of, right? When we're talking about resources and the Emperor, we're thinking about taking care of the things that we already have and really treasuring them, but also trusting in those long-term investments and trusting that they're going to continue to be sustainable and generative over time. So, with the Emperor and the Queen of Swords specifically around finances, it's really just about moving slowly with care and deliberation, about asking the questions you need to ask, right? Quality control, that idea is really coming back here. Like, this isn't about throwing all of your money into something that seems like it might be too good to be true, or like it's going to pay off in some big way with no effort. Like, don't, this is not the month to start like a new like pyramid scheme, or like think that you're gonna suddenly make $10,000 a day selling templates on Etsy. Okay, like this is about asking the questions you need to ask, not diving headfirst into a new project without doing some research or doing your due diligence, or asking the tough questions. But the Nine of Pentacles is in there as well, right? And that's a little bit, that's bringing some sweetness to the pie here. So like Bea was saying about like investing in community and giving back to other people, this can really be showing up in mutual aid, showing up in material ways for the people that we care about. And so I think the Nine of Pentacles is really saying this month, don't forget who helped you get to where you are. Don't forget the ways that we as a community should show up for each other and take care of each other. And also don't be stingy when it comes to care, right? You don't have to overextend yourself, but it's okay to have a little treat sometimes. It's okay to like give nice things to the people you care about. And it's also okay to be nice to yourself. And so I think that this month there are opportunities to show up for the people like in your neighborhood, in your communities, in your area. Even if you don't know them personally, this is about like a rising tide lift all boats, and like really wanting to have this energy of generosity and reciprocity with the people around us. So the Nine of Pentacles just feels like such a mutual aid card to me. So this is about balancing care and responsibility with your finances with being kind, being generous, and this could be a really good month to set up like recurring small donations to a cause that you really care about, or to be mindful about how you can start to work small amounts of mutual aid into your budget, right? Even if it's just like $5 a month towards a cause that you really care about, but being really thoughtful and intentional and organized about service to the people that we care about, I think are some really nice things to keep in mind for this month. And I'm just going to move us right into the next bucket, if that's cool with y'all. So let's talk about home and family. So again, the Nine of Pentacles, very cozy little card, right? This is like this really comforting energy. And I think having 2 4 cards alongside this Nine of Pentacles feels like adding a little bit of stability to the mix, even if there's this awareness of like a larger change that is coming, or a broader shift, or kind of leveling up, right? So I think that if for you in the previous months things have felt a little bit rocky or uncertain or even like complicated with regards to your relationship to your home or to family life, keep investing in the things that help you feel steady, because it's going to start to feel a little bit more solid this month. When I was looking at these cards and thinking about this bucket, I kept thinking about that song, like when the bones are good, the rest don't matter. You know that song? Yes, like that was kind of the song that just kept popping up in my head. I think really trusting in and continuing to invest in the foundations that have already been built, and like believing and rejoicing in the fact that they are solid. I do think that this isn't necessarily the time to like reinvent the wheel or whatever. I think this is trusting in the things that are already established and letting them continue to provide the comfort and stability that you've been seeking, because they're going to start to show up in a stronger way. I also think, looking at these cards, if you're someone who doesn't typically like to ask for support, or who isn't always great at asking for support, and I see your faces, I am calling myself out here too. I heard it. But if you're someone that struggles with like asking for care or for help, or kind of the alternative perspective on this is if you're someone who has trouble like pausing to celebrate the good things, if you tend to just be like, okay, done, fine, yeah, it was great, but like, what's next? I think this month could be a really good opportunity to let your family or your friends or your people, your communities, your coworkers, whoever is important to you and like sees the work that you're doing, let those people take care of you, and also let them express pride and joy in your accomplishments, right? Give yourself opportunities, or if opportunities present yourself, take them, but let yourself like stand up and own the things that you finished and completed, and the things that you have made better, that you have improved, or that you have changed, or that you have offered value to, particularly when it comes to like long-term projects and things that are investments in your own future. Okay, I've talked enough. Gina, what do you have to say about home?
I mean, I feel profoundly called out by a
Yeah, I
lot of
know.
what you said, and we're just
I
gonna
wasn't happy writing this or saying this, okay?
because home is such a big category for astrology, like there are so many planets and so many parts of the chart that it has to actually do with. I am, for this bucket, going to just be focusing at how the major lunations of the month are highlighting, again, some people's birth charts depending on their rising sign, specifically in the fourth house of home, family, heritage, cultural roots, grandparents, parents, elders, all that good stuff. So, Sagittarius and Gemini risings, I'm coming for you. For Sagittarius risings, the Pisces eclipse later in the month falls in the part of your chart that has to do with those like natal family relationships. I will say, chosen as a queer person, like chosen family, some astrologers put it in the fourth, some put it in the third, some put it in the 11th. So, chosen family is something that I may sometimes talk about in regard to this, but like, everyone puts it somewhere different. So if you put yours in the fourth, then we're also talking about chosen family. But this is just to say that with the Pisces eclipse happening here, something around your literal living space or around those relationships with folks who are close to you is concluding or changing in a major way. Like maybe my Sag risings out there are moving, or a relationship with a family member has like either worsened or improved on the flip side, right? Like change looks like a lot of different things. I again would look at the new moon in Pisces 6 months ago in March to see what you may have been beginning to do or thinking about doing in regards to your home life, and just like compare that with that, anything, any shifts that are happening now, even just a shift in perspective, right? Like noticing that a city you live in maybe no longer feels like the place you want to be long term. That's a completion in a cycle. Like that's a peak moment in a cycle. So it doesn't have to be big and dramatic and like hiring movers. It can look a lot of different ways. And then for Gemini risings, oh, y'all have a lot going on in your fourth house because your fourth is
We're
Virgo.
tired.
It's like Virgo season, the Mercury retrograde that just happened went through your fourth. So like the new moon in Virgo specifically is initiating a very big news cycle in your home life. And so we've talked about how potent and powerful this new moon is going to be, earlier when it comes to shifting your priorities, exercising discernment. But it really could also be that you have a major change in a relationship with parents or grandparents, or you're initiating a new journey into learning about your cultural heritage or ancestral roots, right? So, like, that's huge. And it could just be that you want to move or you want to redo your house. Like, I never met someone with a Virgo fourth who was satisfied with their home. But yeah, these things are all just very up for review right now. And I would also remind Gemini risings that it is the beginning of this journey. Again, not the like, we're starting. We're not like, and it's here. I feel like I should
Okay, so
apologize
I
for.
went in a little bit of a different direction than the two of you did with the numerology this month, but I think that's cool. I think that's needed for the whole of it. So, 8 and 9 illustrate the process of conflict and resolution. So, this month, if challenging situations arise in the sphere of home or family life, and that could be with family members, chosen family, roommates, other home situations, just really try to not get swept up in the big emotional reactions this month, because that is what 8 is going to want you to focus on. It will say your pride is on the line, your ego will be out there, your feelings are all hurt. And that's really fine and well and valid, and definitely process your feelings as they come up. But what 9 is saying is that we are trying to move past those initial big waves so that we can actually resolve something. So to take the space, to take your deep breaths, to even remove yourself from certain situations if you need to, in order to then be able to come back to the table to see the other person's perspective and try to find common ground. And those in personal 2 or 6 months might feel especially sensitive around. 2 is love and relationships. It's a very tender, sensitive number. And then 6 is family. And it also houses like responsibility, obligation, guilt, shame, all that jazz. So my advice to anyone in a 2 or 6 personal month is to really just take good care of yourself this month, because wearing your heart on your sleeve is wonderful, but it does still require strong boundaries. And we're not holding back, but we're not overextending unless it's reciprocal or unless you really are getting your cup filled up as well. But if not, we're not draining our cups this month. So eye on the prize. We want to be together. We want to resolve our issues. And so just if things come up, take your space, take your time, and then come back. And I will move us right along to love. This kind of goes hand in hand, obviously, with family and home, right? We're talking about our heart spaces. But with love and relationships in September, 8 is, as we've talked about before, connected to Venus. So 8 definitely rules sex and sensuality. It's erogenous zones, it's body electricity, it's like all that good stuff. So I think the combination of 8 and 9 in September has really gentle but firm Dom energy. Like September would really like for you to feel safe and supported enough to lose yourself in your pursuits, in your efforts, but then also have some water and take some deep breaths and have the snack and get some really good aftercare. So this month, in terms of love and relationships and sex, whatever that looks like to you, if you are feeling a little too in your head or in that mental 9 energy, drop back into the body, whether that's through gentle movement, through harder exercise, through orgasm. This could even just be through taking action around the experience of intimacy in your life. So 8 rules intimacy, and this can go beyond just romantic relationships. This is platonic relationships. This is your relationship with yourself, right? Self-pleasure absolutely counts as well this month. And if you're in a 1, 4, or 7 personal month, these are the practical numbers. But this month in September, you're really being asked to flirt with the emotional elements of 8 energy. And this might not be as matter of fact as you usually like to play things, but I do think September gives this opportunity to indulge in your feelings, to put yourself out there, to shake up your dating habits and routines, which can absolutely include partnered relationships as well. Like if you don't go on dates, September would be a great night or a great month to take a date night. And then really, we're just looking at engaging in our relationships in new and deeper ways in September.
Awesome. I love that so much. I will say, if you are looking for a day in which to indulge or specifically take yourself out with all of that like deeply romantic and creative and erotic energy, I recommend September 15th. Venus is going to be in a gorgeous, generous, easeful trine with Jupiter. And again, Venus rules all things love, beauty, attraction, the relationship to the self, part of sex. Mars rules the other part. But, Venus is all of those things. And then Jupiter expands whatever it touches. So when we have this kind of beautiful moment of Venus and Jupiter connecting like this, it's just wide open, like all the doors open for an opportunity, for pleasure, for play. It could be romantic, it could be sexual, it could be purely platonic, but again, like Bee was saying, very intimate. The opportunities are endless. So it's a gorgeous day for a date. It's a gorgeous day for a girls' night, gorgeous day for a Parks and Rec treat yourself night. Just go out and feel yourself, find someone at the club. Go read quietly at the library with your friends. Whatever that looks like to you, this is the day to do it. Because also, like, we don't get a lot of these really easeful Venus-Jupiter moments throughout the year. We only ever have a handful of them. So, like, this is just a really special day to put on your calendar. And astrologically, like, that's my primary advice for love. For the month.
Love that. So loving all the like soft dom, enjoy yourself, treat yourself energy. This is great. And honestly, when it comes to love and relationships, as I alluded to before, like the cards really reinforce a lot of these messages that we're getting with the astrology and the numerology. Because on one hand, we've got the emperor, the control, the discipline, the authority, and also the Queen of Swords, who says, here's what I want, and here's what is true, and here's what I need. Isn't afraid to say, actually, here's what we're going to do. Here's how this is going to go. But then on the other hand, we've got that Nine of Pentacles. We've got literal satisfaction energy. We've got sensuality, we've got indulgence, we've got taking care of yourself, and we've got enjoying the present moment. So what I wrote in my notes for this bucket is, yes, actually, you can ask for what you want and receive it with pleasure. And that's kind of the vibe. Like, that's kind of what we're working with for September. I think one extra thing to think about too, in addition to, yes, you can have what you want, is that there might be a need to set, maintain, or reinforce boundaries in a particularly intentional way this month, whatever that might look like. And again, we're talking not just about romantic partnerships, but about whatever your loving relationships look like, whatever your more intimate relationships look like. Pay attention to, not just in periods of pleasure and intimacy, but also in just any kind of reciprocal relationship with those you're intimate with. Pay attention to who's really respecting your yes and who respects your no. And pay attention to who is showing up consistently and who you are excited to show up for consistently, right? Who's helping you build things and who seems to be more interested in like tearing it down or telling you why something's not going to be possible. Now, the Emperor is accountability, I think, as well. And I do think it's good and important to have people in our lives that call us on our shit and like call us in and hold us accountable when we're screwing up or when we're learning something. But that can be done with love. It doesn't have to be done with judgment or harm. Pay attention to kind of walking those lines with intentionality. I think the Nine of Pentacles can also bring up long-term vision for community, especially when paired with the Emperor. So think about the plans that you're making to sustain relational energy in a long-term way. And think about the ways that you are investing in stronger, deeper connections by working with the people that you trust to make things that really matter to everyone who's involved. Really just like enjoy yourself, have a nice time, but do it with intentionality. Like let the things that you're doing really matter and take pleasure in the fact that they matter, right? Okay, I'll move us right into our final bucket, which is health. And I just want to remind you of the little caveats and disclaimers we put at the beginning of this, because I think especially when we're talking about health, it can be a little bit activating, especially because I work with tarot and it's so often associated with divination and telling the future. I'm not here to freak you out or make you nervous. I'm also not a doctor. So this is a general vibe kind of advice rather than personal predictions for how your literal physical body is going to feel this month. I'm probably always going to be a little cagey on this particular bucket just because I'm a disabled person and I have a lot of feelings about reading cards around health, but I think it's really important to still offer practical advice when it comes to this particular area. And I will always be reminding you to practice discernment, honor your own body and your limits, and if in doubt, call a doctor, don't call me. Okay. So with these cards in particular for September 2024, the message that really came through loud and clear was that you probably already know what to do to take care of yourself, right? You know what systems work for you in your body. You know what boundaries work for you in your health. You probably have a good sense of the routines that make you feel safe and healthy and steady and secure and empower you to do the things that you want to do on a regular basis. So to me, with these cards, it doesn't feel necessarily like a month to shake things up in a big way if you have the option to stay the course. Obviously things happen, disruptions happen, insurance exists, there's going to be things out of our control. But if you have the option, maybe this isn't the month to like sign up for your very first marathon if you've never run a mile before, like maybe this isn't the moment, right? Maybe this isn't the month to take a huge health risk or set a huge wild new goal if you have the option not to. It's also maybe not the month to like skip therapy or quit therapy permanently. Again, if you have the option not to. It's okay to dream of the future or to think about things that you might want to do. That's always very welcome and I think really supported by 9 energy. But continue the patterns of investment in yourself that you know work and keep moving at a steady pace to do the things that you know actually work for you. And I think the Nine of Pentacles is also kind of coming in to say you get to find pleasure in this process, right? If you know that you love going for long walks after dinner or going for a swim every morning or taking a few minutes to have a little dance break in the middle of a stressful day, if you know that like getting regular massage or acupuncture or going to art therapy or like whatever it is helpful and supportive for you, do those things. Like just go ahead and do those fucking things, right? Not just because they're good for you, but because you know how to do them and you feel safe within them and you can like savor and enjoy every moment of that process. This is not a month for reinventing the wheel when it comes to your health. This is about doing what you know works for you and makes you feel good and letting those things really sustain you throughout the month. So, okay, I'll kick it to you, Jeanna.
That is very consistent with what I chose to focus on for health and astrology for the month. And yeah, just to also reiterate with health and astrology, everyone's individual chart is going to have different indicators of health, right? Like we look at the moon a lot, we look at the sixth and 12th houses a lot. So there are very personal individual things you can get into with your astrologer or with your doctor or therapist, like whoever you'd like to talk to about this. But in terms of the month ahead for everyone, what I will offer is that the Mars transit really jumped out at me. Mars as a planet is very hot, very prone to overheating, very prone to overdoing. It's where we find our motivation and our work ethic, and unsurprisingly, it has to do with like how we very literally physically move in the world. And so looking at Mars can tell us a lot about where we might be pushing our bodies or how our health is going. So Mars is changing signs and moving into from Gemini into Cancer on September 4th. So we're going to be moving with Mars in Cancer for like almost the whole month of September. And the way I like to think about planets changing signs is to focus first on the element of the sign. So it's like, okay, we have a champion athlete in Mars, an action star, a martial artist. There are a lot of different ways to think about that archetype. But we're putting her in a river. She doesn't get to do track. She doesn't get to like do gymnastics or balance beam. She's been airdropped in a fucking Hunger Games dome into the river because Cancer is rushing moving water. So like what are the conditions that that person faces when trying to move in a river? What conditions do we face with that situation? Okay, we have to be mindful of the current. First off, we don't panic and fight it. That's when bad things happen. There's also like so much more drag when moving through water than when moving through air, right? Like the difference between swimming and skydiving, like speed wise, no matter how fast Michael Phelps and Katie Ledecky look, is really wild. Like, we're just not going to be able to move as fast this month. Even the people who are the most, driven, the most in shape, the most XYZ, we're all moving more slowly. And that requires more intention, which is just like the message of the whole month. The other thing with Mars and Cancer that I think is really important to be mindful of, because again, it's like our movement is happening in water. And spiritually speaking, the water is our emotions, right? Like we've all been talking about this. So I think it's really important to be mindful of how we're moving emotions through the body, how we're allowing ourselves to process. So whether that literally means going swimming at your local Y, or you sit at the beach in Lakeshore and you just let the water lap at your ankles, all of that is going to be really helpful medicine for the month. Stay hydrated. Again, the soft dom energy is very loud. Just consider integrating more fluid forms of movement into your life, right? Like that can look like so many different things: yoga, Pilates, belly dance, gentle stretching. I will say, as someone who's like still recovering from major surgery and I'm 5 weeks out at this point, but I still have some major physical limitations in terms of how I can move. I will say that there are so many free videos on YouTube for modified versions of those things, like chair yoga, chair belly dance. These things exist. And I really encourage you to check them out because I know that when you feel away in a body, a lot of that movement can feel really inaccessible and really out of reach. But there are modifications available if we just kind of get over our shame about it or our expectations of what we should be doing. Yeah, this month we're just letting go of what our bodies used to be able to do and are embracing where they are now.
Yeah, when nobody's getting any younger, I guess.
I guess. We can't make time, Meg. We've already learned that.
You can't
Wow.
make time and you can't fight the current. And these are my sayings.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I needed this message a year ago, personally. Just to take us home for this bucket, I did not take us in a different direction. I am pretty much
Shocking.
just echoing what has already been said. But I will say that 8 rules both pain and pleasure. So the experiences of either could be really heightened in September when it comes to health. So if you have chronic pain flares or, other things to watch out for, again, not a forecast, not fear mongering, just saying it could be ripe. I'm saying that to myself too, so that I remember to do my chair yoga instead of my headstand. In combination with nine, again, we are just really being asked to take a mature approach to our health and a logical approach. Again, if I cannot do a headstand, I probably will not attempt one because I will fall on my face and that will hurt me, is kind of the vibe that I'm feeling this month. So we are really putting our efforts into the practices, the habits, the routines that we know are good for us. So again, like Meg said with the tarot, we're committing to what we know will be good for us, that we know is already working. And hopefully in this, we can let ourselves be kind of like shocked that it works, like shocked that we feel good by the end of the month if we really put into practice the wellness routines that we know are good. And then also the summer months had a lot of seven heavy numerology, and seven is fog and confusion and not having the answers to our questions. So if that was your summer, especially around health, September is the first in many months that we actually have this more air approach to researching, to finding new philosophies, new lifestyles, new techniques, treatments, even medical providers. So maybe we're not necessarily switching things up if it's working or based on how we feel about things. Eight will tell you to follow that emotional wave, and nine is saying, no, no. We are making intentional changes here if we are making changes to our health routines. And then the last thing I just want to note is if August was really chaotic for you in a body, September may actually call for the opposite. Nine definitely brings about radical space and softness. So everyone, but especially if you're in a personal month that can be particularly activating, like 3 or 5, you might want to lean into themes of retreat that September has to offer. I'll put 9 in there too. If you're in a 9 personal month, you'll have that double dose. So you might be doing both, but definitely permission yourself to disappear. It's okay to work in the dark for a while. It's okay to be in the privacy of your own energy. It feels like nothing needs to be shared before you're ready. And nobody needs to know what you're doing or what you're going through, unless obviously you're in relationship with people and then communicate. But you can just work in the dark this month if it feels really overwhelming to be outside of yourself.
And I needed that, Bee. I needed to
Yeah.
hear that. So thank you. That really, not to again use a Christian thing, but like that really ministered to me in like a way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well,
Love
thank
it.
you all because that is everything. And we
Yeah,
have
we did it.
shared
That's it.
a lot. It's been a lot.
Can't ask Fire Mercuries to do like anything in a condensed or brief. This is a Fire Mercury podcast, TM. Like,
I know, but the good news is that there is a lot of workable energy this month, a lot of actionable energy. And obviously, the numerology, the astrology, and the tarot all have their insights, but then they have these unique ways to interact with yourself, with others, blending these modalities. And there are really clear collective themes here and energies. So it feels like we're just anchoring ourselves, we're weathering whatever storms come up in logical and precise ways, and then we're being brave enough to kill our darlings if we need to.
Yeah,
uh-huh.
love to see it.
September 2024, kill your darlings.
Your darlings. Yeah, like do the shit you know works. Like take care of yourself in the ways that you know work. Don't be afraid to set those lines if you need to, but you get to feel okay about some of that stuff. It's not a bad thing to indulge in some pleasure, to celebrate a job well done, to let yourself receive like praise or care or ministrations as it is.
And no matter how like dreamy or untethered certain moments of the month may be, like especially around the full moon eclipse, discernment is our companion. We are walking with discernment this month and every month, but especially this month.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're at the end of this numerological cycle. Like we'll see in October, we're going to start up with this one energy again and hang out in that transitional
Beautiful.
space. So it's great. And also, Meg, to your point, like we should celebrate at the end of something, even if it's been a painful journey. Like this culmination energy will hopefully put us in this really positive, optimistic, future forward place.
Absolutely.
So I'm hopeful.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, before we sign off, do either of you have anything going on or coming out in September that you want to shout out before we go?
Well, this month I will be teaching creative writing at my alma mater, so I am not open for readings for the public at the moment, but you can still find me in my newsletter, Astrology for Writers, on Substack. There's a private Discord community that's exclusive to paid subscribers, and it is like Bee and Meg are both there. It's just so active, so rich, so much wisdom. Hope to see you there.
Yeah. I am launching a new journaling series that's all about like using the tarot to tap into emotions and explore your own emotions. And it does actually launch on the new moon in September. So depending on when this episode finds you, you might still be able to snag a spot, or you might need to wait for it to be added to the 3 a.m. Tarot Conservatory, which it will be added. So if you're interested in that and this didn't find you in time, that's totally fine. I have a monthly subscription service to access all of my best courses, and you can find that on my website, 3amtarot.com.
What about
Yay!
you, Bee?
Ooh, well, I am open for readings. I'm traveling a little bit in the middle of the month. So at the beginning of September and the end of September, I will have availability for both numerology and tarot readings. You can
Awesome.
find information for both of those on my website, rebeccaskolnick.com. And then, yeah, I also have a Substack, Swimming in the Soup, which you can find. And I'm hoping to do some more writing for that this fall. So I'm excited.
We're booked and busy, but
Booked
like, come
and
book with us.
busy. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
come
yeah,
hang
yeah,
out with us.
exactly. We're not too busy to work with you. So,
Exactly. And we'll have direct links to all of that like in the show notes. So it'll be
yeah.
really easy for you to find as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Again, like we said at the top, this is our first of the monthly forecast episodes. So please let us know what you liked, what was helpful, what you'd like to see more of, and do all of the things like, subscribe, comment, rate, review. Find us on social media. We are at Call Your Coven on Instagram. You can also check out our website, callyourcoven.com. Please tell your friends. The coven aspect of this does mean us, but it also means you. And we're so curious to see how this could grow. And we will have solo episodes on our individual modalities coming at you throughout the month. But if you haven't listened to our intro episode yet, you can also give that a listen. And then, like we said, you can support the 3 of us individually on our respective platforms, which everything's in the show notes. And then we will see you back in October for a beautiful forecast into the fall.
Leave a message for us.
Bye.
Bye.